Good morning, everyone. This is the first episode of The Holistic Home. I'm Danielle Durkin, and we have Lauren from Crown Paints joining us today for the very first episode of The Holistic Home. We have put together this episode to introduce our collaboration as my first podcast ever, and we're just going to have a little chat today about colour and Lauren's role at Crown Paints as architectural and design consultant. So Lauren, would you like to just say a little hello?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming this morning, Lauren, and we're really excited to have a little chat. Shall we get right into the questions I've prepared for you?
Yeah.
So as everyone knows, design is really important in our everyday lives. It really kind of has a positive impact on us, but colour in particular has a massive impact on the way we live. So this is why we wanted to put colour at the forefront of our first podcast. So can you tell us a little bit about Crown Paints and your role in the company, Lauren?
Yeah, so I'm, like you said, one of the architecture and design consultants at Crown Paints. This part of the team is about 2 years old, whereas Crown Paints has been around since I think it's like 1770s. So 200-year-old paint brand, and then a 2-year-old team with the architecture and design consultancy. And I think this kind of came about because we realized that, like you said, colour is so impactful. But then when it comes to people that are specifying the colours, the designers, the architects, there's no one there to guide them on it. And like you can see, there's so many colours. We have thousands of colours. So to have someone there to consult, to guide, and to help with the specification of the colour, we realise there's such a big impact on the end space that is done as well, and the paint that's then produced. So yeah, this team kind of came about to give that support to the design community as well and be in the industry in that sense.
That's so amazing, because I think we're really making advancements in kind of interior design and how important we, obviously as designers, we feel it is important. But I think the rest of the world is now starting to catch up and realise that we should put a lot more effort into our spaces, and therefore the kind of positive effects we get from it going forward. So we want to go into colour kind of and its impact next. So my next question is, how would you believe that colour influences our emotions and mood in a space? So with this being the holistic home, that's really important to us.
Oh, it drastically affects it. So we have a CPD that's on about colour psychology. You know, we dedicate a whole presentation to it because it's so impactful. You could have, and it varies as well, if you've got a child, a space for children, or if you've got a space for the elderly, or if it's a working environment, you know, the colour will really impact not just the space that is required, the people that are in the space as well. So for example, if you had some young kids and you painted a space in like really bold, punchy, red, bright red colours, it's going to really work them up and they're going to get really energetic. Whereas if you had a really calming space, maybe more muted tones, it will very much be a much more calming effect. And, you know, we probably see this in every day. Think about taking your kids to a play area. It's all these bold, punchy colours. Kids are running around, going crazy. It's probably a bit too much for adults where it's all in your face. Whereas then think of, like you said, holistic environments, which we're seeing more and more. The colour palettes there are so much more muted. They're so much calmer tones, quite calming, and kind of like the beigey, the whites, and it's kind of completely opposite spectrum there as well. So it has a massive influence.
So important in today's world with kind of all the issues that we're facing with mental health. If we can do or take small actions to actually have, a little impact on that, then it's really important. And as you say, it's so important in those commercial spaces where it does influence whether a brand or a company makes some money by the actions people take because of being impacted by that colour.
Sorry on that, like you said about commercial spaces. So McDonald's, think of them. Bright red and bright yellow. Their colours are specifically chosen so that people go in and they only stay there for like, I think it was called 7 or 8 minute seat or something. They don't want you to stay long. So having those bold, bright colours makes you almost feel uncomfortable. You don't want to stay there and you kind of rush through your meal to then get out. But then think of all those fine dining spaces where they want you to stay and relax. It's whites, it's clean, it's sparse. It's like, you know, it's
totally
completely
different.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, those tones also make you hungry as well, don't they?
Exactly.
So next, my other passion is, you know, the kind of more health related, sustainable side. So I think with products, they do have an impact on our environment and our health. And the holistic home is all about your health and wellness, physically and mentally, but also, you know, the environment and our impact on that. So let's touch on sustainability. I know that this is important to Crown, and it is a growing concern in various industries. So how does Crown prioritize products and processes in terms of sustainability?
Yes, this is obviously an ongoing thing, especially not just in modern society, but in paints, you kind of think about paints that's not very sustainable, whereas actually Crown are doing a lot. So not only are we owned by a foundation, so all these profits go towards biodiversity projects, education projects around the world, Crown as a painting manufacturer itself are doing more and more all the time within the development of the actual physical paint that goes on the wall, what happens to that packaging as well. So for example, with the paint in particular, we talk about VOCs when you talk about environment and how that affects the atmosphere in the space and how we breathe in there. So a lot of our paints, we're looking at lowering the VOCs. We have our Breathe Easy paints as well. But then we also last year launched our clean air range. So this, when you have a new space, obviously you have all these particles and all these chemicals from all these new furniture and all these new pieces. So our clean air paint removes up to 45% of those formaldehydes from the air. And it's a continuous ongoing process as well. Like the advances there are just incredible. So we talk about the wider sustainability in the painting industry, but it's also what is it doing to the spaces where it's then applied. It's great that we can then recycle the cans, we can look at where the profits are going, but that space where the paint is going as well, that first-hand point and call where what's happening there in that environment. So yeah, the clean air one is like an incredible advancement there for that holistic point of view, like for sure.
So exciting because as we see, there's so many cases of cancer nowadays. If we can do anything to reduce toxins in the air, the dream, isn't it? Have definitely a positive impact in so many different ways.
Yeah.
It's all about being productive in terms of not just creating great spaces, but you're also doing something positive at the same time.
Yeah.
Really cool. I love that. So how does Crown Paints leverage technology and innovation in creating new and unique colour formulations? So kind of more looking at the technologies you use either to create the colours or the technologies you would use when customers want to specify colours, but they may not have kind of the exact shade found in your range.
Yeah, so colours is a spectrum. Like you could pick any colour and it can be created somehow in some way. In our fan deck, we have like over 1,000 colours. And then we also have the RAL and the British Standard. So, it's ones that are universal, ones that we have in our own range as well. But then we're one paint brand. Other people have colours themselves. And like I said, it's a spectrum. You could pick from anything. And I think that wide spectrum can make it hard sometimes. But then at the same time, it means that it's so accessible anyway. If they've got a colour, people want to get it. And I would say a massive advancement there is our scan codes and our colour keys as well. So, we can match colours, we can find a colour, we break down our colours into the light reflectance value, the saturation and the hue. And that is such an advancement in understanding colour because that's a whole minefield in itself, but also pinpointing exact colours. Colours will look different in different lights. They'll look different against different pieces of furniture, against other colours. So I think a massive step forward in the research and technology that we have in the colours alone is definitely to do with our colour keys and kind of our scan codes where we break it down, like I said, into those 3 different sections.
That's awesome. And I think it helps, obviously, with you being an interior designer in your background. You have that passion for it and you're obviously going to push that side of things, the technology side of things. But I think it's something people really forget about is that, colour isn't just about choosing a nice colour. You see something on one of these colour cards, but actually what it looks like in your home is very different. And people sometimes will ask me, do I really need to buy a paint sample? 100% you do. And you don't just need to try it in one place in your room. You need to try it in multiple places. Because just because you like it, it doesn't mean it's going to suit your space. And how it will look on the wall could be very different. So you're not going to get that same kind of positive effect from it. Like you like it, but will you like it in that space is a whole other ballgame. And it's all relevant, as you said, the amount of light that's getting into the space, the direction in which the light is coming in, as you said, different times of day. And these are all things as designers that we have to think about. So it's a very specific specification, like it's the biggest part of our project. If clients say, do you always need to visit site? Can you do projects remotely? Yes, there are interior designers out there that do remote projects, but I suppose they will take less risk. So that will be relevant to the sort of projects they get in. But if I can do a lot of my work remotely, I will. But that's one part where I will always visit site is, to do sample testing.
Yeah.
It's key. It could really be the maker or breaker of a project,
space,
especially if you're, choosing colors that are a bit more out there. That actually brings up another question I have. Do you know off by heart how many shades of white that Crown actually have?
Endless. No, so obviously white's like a minefield in itself, I would say as well.
Yeah, let's just see a quick.
Like you can see, some are grey, some are pink, some are yellow. And that kind of sounds weird when you describe a white as a different colour, or like you have the warm and the cold. But like you said, when a colour makes or breaks it, you have to pick it. It's not just with the bold colours, it's with the whites as well. Because you could pick one and then it could make a room feel so cold and like empty and damp. You could pick a different one, it would be
a warm white,
warming. And
then it's
whites
relevant
are a whole
to
thing in
this
itself.
type of lighting, whether it's whether it's cold white or warm white lighting that they're using on top of that.
Yeah. And the finish of the paint as well. So you could go satin, gloss, matte. That's then also going to have an effect on it because that will affect how the light would then reflect off of it or how different colours will kind of bounce off of it as well. So,
And also the sort of atmosphere they create. So, a matte finish creates a totally different atmosphere than a glossier finish.
Definitely.
Matte's more contemporary and gloss probably is a little bit more kind of going towards the
changing with the times.
Yes, let's put it that way. So, white is one of my favorite colors, actually. Even though it is funny when you describe it as a color.
Yeah.
But I often get clients say, oh, white's white, isn't it? And I'm like, no, it definitely isn't. It definitely isn't. So, that's really interesting. So, let's talk about trends in color. When it comes to trends, how does Crown stay ahead and predict up and coming color trends? Because I think this is something that a lot of people find very interesting.
Yeah, so we have our colour insights. We used to call them trends, but we don't want people to almost fear picking those colours because they might be out of trend. Whereas actually, it's more just an insight. It's kind of what's going on. There's this certain project around these sort of subjects. What fits in with this as well? Just because we have an insight from last year doesn't mean it's not relevant this year. Our trends, our insights, they're always ongoing, always changing. So we have a team of experts, our colour panel. This is a mix of people within Crown and outside of Crown as well, because then we really get that diversity. And they have different roles in themselves as well. So they might be designers, they might be colour experts. It's a complete people that have different experience. They have different views of colour. They play around with colour different every day themselves as well. And individually, they will look at different topics in the wider world. So it's not just looking in the design industry. They will look at what's happening in politics, what's happening in nature, what's happening just in the globe, in different cultures. What are the movements that are going on that have been in the past and might be coming back? Things that they might predict that are coming into the future, science and technology and how that's evolving as well. And they will look at that and see how that's affecting our spaces. So they'll look at
the way we live, right?
Oh, yeah, completely. So they'll look at the news and then they'll also go to design shows or art galleries and fashion shows because we talk about colour. It's not just colour on our walls. It's what do we wear? What do we buy? What's our car? That it all has an influence in the colours we choose and our environment that we live in. They'll all do that separately, come together, talk about it. They'll see common themes, common insights, and that's when they then put together the different insights as well. So it's kind of an ongoing process of time. Then each year we'll launch a new set of different insights.
That's really interesting. So there's a lot of depth behind it.
Yeah, definitely.
It isn't just something that somebody goes, well, these are nice.
There's a lot more work to it. And they'll look at case studies, they'll look at relevant artists or designers or influencers or people within that. And they'll look at how they're using that colour and how we could get inspiration from that. And then the Crown team as well will put together a photo shoot to show that colour in context. It's great saying, here's some nice colours that would fit in with this, but how could we use that in a space? It's the walls, it's the floors, it's the ceilings, it's the details, it's the accents as well. And then put together that imagery so we have a visual cue for all those as well.
That's good because that makes it easier for designers to apply then because you've thought ahead in how it will be actually implemented.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. Really important. So then I wanted to next touch on global influence on colour choice. So does Crown Paints take into account any cultural and regional preferences when developing colour palettes?
Yeah, so like I said, with their insights, they'll look at different culture. It's not just within the UK, it's in the wider world as well, because, you know, different cultures have different colours that have different meaning. We look at white and it's quite a pure colour to us, but then I'm sure it's the colour of mourning over in China or something. Check that. But like, you know, different colours mean things to different cultures and different people. So it's very much, how do we respond? Who are these colour insights mainly going out to as well, and how are they using it? But yeah, culture is a massive one. And within our colour insights, we look at, so one we've had before is cultivate. And, you know, that's that craftsmanship and that creating our spaces. And we look at the cultures that literally hand make their spaces through like weaving and crochet and mud houses. And we don't do that anymore in the 21st society we live in here in the UK, but there are cultures that still very much are crafty and hands-on in their environment. And it's looking at what are the techniques they use, what are the colours from those materials as well, and how could that influence what we're doing here now.
Amazing. That's really good, because it's considering, you know, celebrating the world we live in and not just, you know, being very narrow-minded about things.
Well, colour's universal, isn't it? Like,
it just gives
even
it
if it's different here to somewhere else, we all respond to colour. You know, we all 100%. Live in colour. So yeah, definitely.
Really cool. I think you've touched on this earlier, but are there any unique and innovative ways that Crown Paints allow customers to personalise their paint choices? Mm-hmm. You mentioned the cube. Would that be?
Yeah, the colour key, obviously, when it scans the colours, that gives you the RGB values as well. So you can then translate it onto a computer if you're doing visuals. I would say Crown are really good at doing our samples as well. Like you said about getting a sample for a space. I think a big thing about personalising colour is people see these colours and they just get overwhelmed and they'll just pick one and go with it. Whereas we have our pure paint samples. You can get an A5 card or get a pot tinted, have it in that space. You could pick up to 10, 20 different colours to stick on the wall and then see it. And that just helps you, first of all, create your own more refined palette. And then you can start personalising it from that as well, rather than getting so overwhelmed and just feeling like you should just pick one. You can, you know, create your own palette, narrow it down yourself. And that's obviously a part of what we do as the architectural and design consultancy team as well. We might have designers come to us and say either this is what the client wants, this is what we're thinking. Can, you know, give some advice, help us here. And we can then either do it ourselves. You know, you said I have the interior design background, so I'm very passionate. We also have our colour experts team as well. So we can then come together and put a particular palette together for your project, depending on what it is as well.
Brilliant. So if a client came to me and they showed me a piece of artwork they had, or talked about a trip they took, or they something significant that they really were influenced by, and they kind of wanted to be able to pick up on that, you say that the scanner would aid us in being able to do that?
Yeah. So we always say to designers, if they've got a piece of wallpaper or a fabric that they want to either match or get a close match to, then our colour key will see if we have a Crown colour on the system that matches that, or it'll come up with an RGB, so we can either find the closest match or we can see if we can match it to that colour as well. And I think it's always important when you have those sort of pieces, like an artwork or a furnishing that you want to match in colour, thinking about the context. Say you have like a chair and you want a hole behind it to match it. Do you want that exact colour, or maybe like a slightly off tone just to support it as well? And I think that sometimes the colour key is great at matching it, but then also think about, you know, how much of that colour do you want to show? And
one tone more or less.
Exactly. The difference in that.
That's really important. Yeah. What really attracted me to Crown when I first started out was their paint samples and how they do them. You've obviously touched on it, and you've mentioned that you have true painted kind of paper
the
samples.
A5 pure paint samples.
They're amazing. They're
game changer.
That is the word I was looking for. So I think it does two things. One, gives the user the opportunity to be braver initially, because they can try a number of different colours, get them stuck on the wall, and then without obviously damaging the space as well. And then they're not spending money, so there's no reason why they can't be brave. And they can do, like you said, a process of elimination to get down to what they really want without feeling that overwhelm, because it's the pressure of having to pick something that stops them from being brave, because they think, well, I'm not going to buy all these different painting samples to try. And even when you look at the painting sample, until it's actually on the wall and is dried, do you have that whole process before you even get close to choosing your colour? So this kind of gets you like much further into the process, having those A5 cards that you can put on the wall, and you're saving money. So
it gives people the confidence, like you said, about, you know, that eliminating all those choices and trying to go bolder. And people, you know, if they don't have that design background, they're not inclined to color as much. A lot of people I hear say they just don't feel confident in choosing colors and they don't know where to start and what to do. So it allows them that time. Yeah, exactly.
People don't have the time for wasting, you know, for hours trying to choose.
Just staring at all the different colors of what to do. So
definitely. So would you say that you have noticed kind of any trend changes in how people are picking colors? Are they braver nowadays? Has that changed in recent years, especially since the introduction of these A5 cards?
Oh, yeah. I would say that people are going... It's an interesting one because in some senses, people are going bolder. In some senses, they are drawing back. But I think it depends on the setting. I would say, look at the work environment. That's been a massive one since COVID. We're trying to get people back into the office spaces. I've noticed more and more office spaces are being designed with colour in mind. Think back to office spaces before. It was white. It was stark. It was pretty uninspiring. Whereas I went on a site visit back in like October time, and this office space had a black wall. They had orange glass panels. Like It was bold, it was punchy, but it was still really sophisticated and
giving
smart.
Giving people a reason to want to come into work.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. And it's using colour to do that. So I would say in that environment, workspace is a massive one where people are going bolder in their colours, definitely. And it's definitely something with Crown that a lot of people that we deal with that design of the office spaces, they're wanting colour, they're wanting to, you know, experiment with the hues and saturations of things a bit more as well. And then, like I said, there's the other side of it, which I suppose in homes, you know, we look at old trends, the 60s and it's 70s, the patterns and the colours. And I would say homes now are a bit more calmer. It's kind of almost done a flip. You know, we have realised the impact what our space makes, and we live in our homes through COVID. We were in our homes every single day. And I think people realised the impact that had on our mental space as well. So it's, you know, taking it back a bit, making it calmer, making it breathable. So yeah, I would say they've almost done a flip from what I've seen. So it's quite an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, it's exciting. That whole psychology side of design is what I'm really, really passionate about. And I think I've always said to clients, like when we do the process of taking on your project, it's all about taking a brief and getting to know who you are personally and kind of the sort of lifestyle you lead. And you mentioned, you know, you think that residential spaces are becoming a little more calmer. I think that can be down to personality.
Yeah.
So for example, if you are someone who has a really high powered job, you know, there's a lot of stress in your environment. When you come home from a day at work, if you're quite a person that doesn't deal with stress well, then that is probably what you need. You need that wind down, that calmness. If you're somebody who is a bit more high energy and you need kind of to have those bright colors around you all the time to keep you on that high level, then that's what you need to do. And I think it's just different strokes for different folks. Yeah. In my home, I'm actually not a big color person, like as in bright colors. But before I bought my current home, I wanted a Scandi style interior. That was what I was going to have. And then, you know, we got the property and actually I'd changed my mind at that point and I wanted to start introducing more color to my life. And I think that's all relevant to how our lives evolve and change and what you need at that time.
Yeah, it's always changing. Yeah. And I think it's the context of the space as well. So when I lived down by the sea, I wanted that muted calmness to kind of match that vibe, match the sea, the space that was around me, because I was very much outdoors a lot more. I was, you know, a lot calmer. It was
connected to nature.
Yeah, definitely. Whereas now that I'm back here in the Midlands and I'm a bit busier, there's a few more people that I'm seeing and things that I'm doing, I'm kind of, you know, going with that energy and I'm slowly implementing a bit more colour into my space.
It's a bit like a drug. You need to keep going on that same level all the time.
Keep it on,
Oh, goodness. So I painted my home pretty much all white, but then the colour is in the furnishings and accessories.
Yeah, that's what I've done,
And that's how I like it, because I think I have that good mix and that works for my personality and kind of how I feel. For those out there who don't know who they are in terms of their colour personality, I think it's about really assessing your mindset, your own living situations, your working situations, kind of your mental and even physical health, because I think there's colours that encourage us as well. So it's almost like write down a profile of who you are and then kind of do your research. If you can't work with somebody like myself or Lauren, do your research into what colors will work and suit your personality. It's almost like, giving yourself a little tick list.
Yeah. You got to understand yourself. In design, we always talk about understanding your client. Well, when it's your home, the client is yourself. So you've got to really thoroughly think through how you use a space, how you sit in a space, how you live and breathe in a space, and what it is that you need from it, and like really just invest in that time, because that'll make such an impact.
100%. Oh, it's so exciting talking about color. It's one of my favorite things. So then let's talk about the future of color in design. So what do you see as future trends in color, interior and exterior design? And then how are Crown Paints preparing for the evolving needs in the design industry?
So we have our 2024-25 Colour Insights launching as well. So there will be more slowly coming on that. I had a little sneak preview last week, and they play off of last year's one of Joy, where it's really colourful, and there's kind of an involvement in that one when it's quite punchy and fun. But then we also have an involvement of the abstract simplicity and a new insight there that is that when I said about that cultivation and kind of what's going on there as well. And it just shows how insights, they don't necessarily just stop and start. They can evolve and can bring on into different areas as well. So that's something there's more coming with that soon. It's really exciting, and we're always looking at what can we do and what's coming up next, because when you design a space, you're not going to design it and do it in a day. You design it, you think about it, you have to source things.
It's a process.
It's a whole process, and the space might not be implemented until 2 years' time for some like big hotels at least. At home maybe it's sooner, maybe a few months, but there's such a time frame that you could pick something today, it could be irrelevant or completely different in a few months. So it's really taking that time and looking at what's evolving and what's changing, definitely.
And then I suppose, why should people pick Crown Paints over other brands?
So, not to be biased, we say, it's not just paint, it's personal. And there's been so many questions here and conversations we have, and it keeps going back to that thing about it is personal. The paint, the colour, our spaces. At the end of the day, even if you're doing a commercial space that's for loads of people, every individual will experience that space differently. It is personal, and I think we really honour that and we really understand that. We look at the colours, we look at how we can support people. Our Project Possible is just an incredible thing that's coming about sustainability in the wider world, but also in our local communities as well. We look at the recycle content, we look at our landfill, we look at our communities, we look at our charities, we look at education. I think Crown, you talk about...
It's not a brand for brand's sake.
No, you talk about holistic design. Crown are a holistic company, I would say, from my experience. And we've got that support, we've got that encouragement, and we're always looking at what can we do better? How can we support better? It's not forward, it's so personal, definitely.
Brilliant. Well, the reason we have done this podcast together today as my first one is because I recently launched the DIY Designer Toolbox. So the DIY Designer Toolbox is a little bit of a different approach to giving people the opportunity to do their own interior design. So it's in the name, the DIY Designer Toolbox. It's aimed at people who maybe are not in a position to hire a designer, or think they're not in a position to hire a designer, or somebody who doesn't want to lose control of their own project. Not that that's what we do, to be clear. You're very much involved if you want to be. But it's a series of educational videos. It's a DIY designer planner that you can plan the whole journey of your project, everything from the floor plans, the concepts, the design development. You've got specification documents in there. You've got opportunities to create plans with your project manager. So lists of trades that are going to be involved in your project, create budgets. There's all sorts of opportunities to plan your project in there. You also get a sample box based on the information you've provided in the planner. So that's something that I prepare for you, specific to your needs. So if you're just doing one space, or you're doing a whole property, or if it's a commercial space, this can also be relevant, but mainly residential spaces that would most benefit from this, whether it's flooring, paint samples, wallpapers, even textiles. We put together a group of samples that will work for your project and your project needs and your budget. It's very specific to you, and then we post those out to you. You can give them a try, and then you have finally an opportunity to have a Zoom call with me, and we will discuss any of your project needs if you have any questions, or you can just present to me your ideas for some feedback if you need it. So the idea is that we give you all the tools that you will need to create and plan your own project and even implement it, but you have some guidance of a designer if you need it. I wanted to launch the DIY Designer Toolbox because I think that design should be accessible to everyone, and it's all about accessibility. I think that in the past, design has always been seen as a luxury, but I don't think it should be. I think everybody should have accessibility to it because, as we've discussed already, we think it has a real big impact on our physical and mental health. So everybody needs that, right? Yeah. No matter whether your bank balance is large or more challenged. Yeah. So that's why I wanted to launch the DIY Designer Toolbox. But I wanted to get brands involved in this to offer some very, very generous discounts. And Crown are one of the first people that have come on board to do that with me because I think they've seen my passion for design and, as we said, accessibility to that. And I wanted to work with them because I really love their brand and their ethos and everything they're trying to do. So they're my first collaboration partners on this project, and we're really excited for the future of the DIY Designer Toolbox.
That's exciting.
I just wanted to say, Lauren, thank you so much for coming on today. I've really enjoyed chatting to you, and I look forward to many more. Roll on the future of colour.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me as well.